Welcome to the Elder Game podcast, where we talk all things Australian football. Happy Mother's Day to all the mums out there. We're just over a month until the Socceroos kick off their World Cup campaign. We've got training camps, key injuries, and extended squads to talk through as Socceroos hopefuls continue to put their best foot forward. We've also seen the draw for the 2027 Asian Cup with an impending reunion with a former Socceroos boss. Riley McGree's Borough huff and puff but can't find any divine intervention to get past the Saints. Sam Kerr breaks another record at Chelsea. Mary Fowler lifts silverware. And a young Aussie manager is through to a European final. Back home, the A-League finals are in full swing with some outstanding performances in the semi-finals on the men's side, while we have our grand finalists on the women's side. Our young national teams have some mixed fortunes in Asia. Federation Square performs a backflip to rival Irankunda, and we'll finish with our team of the week. Welcoming in the birthday boy, Mopper. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very good yourself.
Yeah,
happy
good.
birthday to you too for last week, my friend. We were both born in May. So, both celebrating our birthdays we were. Very important note, though, on a serious note, we'd like all our thoughts and prayers go out to Chris Turner and his family after the sad passing of Chris Turner. Mark Milligan spoke beautifully, I thought, after the press conference, straight to Chris Turner, and recognising his efforts in Northern New South Wales football across many roles that he played. For his friends and family, all our prayers and thoughts are with you in this difficult time. But Chris Turner, what a legend of Northern New South Wales. He'll be sadly missed.
Well said, mate. The Jets wore their black armbands last night in respect of Chris, and thoughts with Chris's friends and families at this very challenging time, no doubt. All right, Mopper, let's go into the big news for the week. And there's plenty of storylines around the Socceroos. As I mentioned in the intro, we have the Asian Cup draw, which was announced this morning. First arrivals into the training camp for the World Cup, some key injuries, and of course the Federation Square debacle, which happened midweek. Where do you want to start us off, mate?
Well, it has to be the return of the Jedi, Graham Arnold, against the Socceroos. It was like written in the stars, wasn't it? Iraq, who's ranked 57th in the world and will be a lot higher, no doubt, after playing in the World Cup, will take on Australian Group D in the AFC Asian Cup next year in Saudi Arabia. Very exciting, and I'm sure a bit probably nervous for Graham Arnold. I don't think he would have wanted to face the Socceroos in the group stage, but good test for us all. And Kazakhstan and Singapore, the other two nations. So, look, it's a pretty good draw, I think, for Australia in the Asia Cup, and a little bit of sentiment there with Graham Arnold returning and coaching against Australia. It'll be very mixed emotions for him on that night.
Yeah, no doubt, mate. Having had a look at the pots before the draw was announced, seems very clear that the top 6 or so that were spread across the groups, they would be at the business end of the competition. No doubt Iraq will be our stiffest competition in terms of getting out of this group, with no disrespect to Tajikistan or Singapore. But even if there is a little blip from the Socceroos, it's going to be top 2 from each group and then some third place best qualifiers as well. So plenty of time to grow into the tournament. And I think it's a very interesting time looking a little bit further ahead past this World Cup of how our squad might be developing and changing from that time. I've already seen the introduction of some youth, and we know that generation of kind of late teens, early 20s that are starting to kind of burst onto the scene will no doubt be the core group of Socceroos going forward. But I do wonder if some of the ones that are at the latter stage of their career might not quite make it to this Asian Cup, and this might be the real opportunity to put up a big challenge on the continental stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be watching very closely on this one as the squad evolves, isn't it? We've got a very young squad and exciting youth underneath as well. So, it'll be really looking forward to trying to win the trophy in Saudi Arabia. But there'll be some stiff competition, as there always is in Asia. And we've seen that in our not only at our senior level, but our younger level as well. So, yeah, really evenly poised group there with Iraq, I think, and then yeah, there's plenty of top teams. Saudi Arabia, the host as well, will be tough, and yeah, it's going to be a really interesting competition, and hopefully the World Cup will allow us some really good preparation for that Asia Cup because we're definitely wanting to be going deep in that tournament.
Yeah, that's something we haven't done a lot since we won it in 2015. We've been knocked out a lot earlier than we would have anticipated, sometimes quarterfinals and sometimes semis. But it's definitely, I think this is a challenge, the next challenge for the Socceroos. We've kind of battled pretty well at the World Cup stage and got out of groups and done pretty well. We'll see how that goes in a month's time. But the Asian Cup has proven to be quite a challenge for the Socceroos since they won that one in 2015. So no doubt that this will be on the radar to be able to perform and go really deep into that tournament, which will be in January of 2027. So that's going to come around before we know it. Speaking of the World Cup, we've seen the first arrivals into this extended training camp that Tony Popovich has picked. So the first arrivals, there was 8 of them: Mitch Duke, Harry Suter, Matthew Leckie, Nishan Velupillay, Hayden Matthews, Anthony Caceres, Brandon Borello, and Nick D'Agostino. Certainly raised some eyebrows, some of those selections for me, Mopper. What about yourself?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You've seen it in the reaction as well, but and rightfully so. Some players are going to be challenged around their position and the timing of obviously this. We're 3 weeks away from Mexico friendly as well. That's first game on the 31st of May will be the day before the squad gets announced on June the 1st. So yeah, look, we'll start with Mitch Duke, and no real surprise to Mitch Duke. Yeah, there was question marks, obviously, but he came back to Australia with Macarthur, played a bit of Asia Cup football as well, performed pretty steadily. Probably didn't really set a light as what he probably would have, but the A League's a pretty good standard these days, so that's good respect to the A League in itself. But he was obviously a very tireless frontline worker for us 4 years ago, and obviously shares a lot of experience. Harry Suter is, we're hoping he'll be back in time and we'll get some game time for Leicester. He certainly did that, and he come back with aplomb, didn't he? And his form in those games warrants it. His leadership scored a goal in such a small impact. Look what leverage he can provide. So I think Harry Suter, fantastic addition to the Socceroos, will put pressure on those defenders too, because a lot of them would be worried whether they'll actually make it now Harry Suter's back. Matthew Leckie, good old story, isn't he? Leckie's been a Socceroo for a long time, great experience, great leadership. He's just come back from injury as well, a bit like Harry Suter, and played a couple of important games there for Melbourne City at the end, even though it was off the bench. But obviously, his leadership is what he's going for. Velupillay, we all know he played in the start of the campaign, the World Cup campaign, Tony Popovich, and was heavily used in those early games, scored some good goals too. One of Popovich's favourites along the front line there, can play very versatile attacking football. Didn't have the greatest start to the A-League. He was injured at the start of the year, but really took his time to build into the Melbourne victory. But once he was there, he really come home at the end and was recognised in that last Socceroos camp, so no surprise there. Hayden Matthews has been a stalwart in the Socceroos camp, apart from the last one where he was mysteriously left out of the squad and fell out of favour at Pompey as well, with in and out with injuries in that side, limited game time as well, but played in the back half of the last few games for Portsmouth. So we all know the potential of Hayden Matthews, and he'd be one right on the fringes of going to this World Cup. But we all know what talent he is, and Popovich played him straight away in the World Cup qualifiers last year. So Popovich knows his talent. The interesting three of the three A-League players, Anthony Caceres, obviously was in Popovich's start again of the World Cup campaign when he first took over, but we haven't seen him since. So they're a big question mark. Didn't really have the greatest A-League seasons, or not to the standard of what we call probably a Socceroo, and probably at the wrong age bracket. So it was a bit of a strange decision from my behalf, but again, he's probably known his experience. And Barillo really did not have a good year with Western Sydney Wanderers. Well, the club didn't have a good year either. Barillo has played for Popovich before in the World Cup qualifiers in the squad, but they got very limited game time. But again, selected in this training camp. It'd be interesting to see what happens. I would doubt very much that with the depth that we've got up front at the moment, that he would be at anywhere near the top 26. But he's taken him, interesting choice. And then Nick D'Agostino, who probably the biggest surprise because he hasn't played and we haven't seen him. He was injured, played a small part for Popovich when he played those 2 games in America, but we haven't seen him since. Brisbane Roar played a couple of games, but has been out since. I was surprised. I didn't even realise he was fit. So, because he didn't play for any of Brisbane Roar's last games either. So, but we know Popovich loves his work rate. But again, yeah, they're mixed selections, isn't it? And a lot of people obviously raising the question of where's probably the most informed player of the A-League, which is Eunice, who really tore the A-League apart and showed the elite levels in that standard of the A-League, that he's not even in that first 8. Now, whether he's in that next part, I don't know, but very strange when you think the A-League and his side got knocked out last week, that he's not even selected, even though Popovich replied to that comment to say that he's still in the reckoning, but a very weird selection leaving him out considering the gap between the standard that he set, I believe, not only in Melbourne City's A-League campaign, but in Asia. He was by far one of their best players as they went deep into that tournament. So, look, is it up to scope? Are we surprised? Probably not with Popovich, his selections, but you've got to ask the question, and very valid ones, on what the public are looking at when they're looking at these selections.
Yeah, agree, mate. And one thing that Popovich has said is that this is the first group, and he does have to pick a 55 player extended squad. I think that might even be around today or the next couple of days that he has to submit that squad. So I think part of his justification for these names were he has to see whether they're actually even eligible to make that first cut of these 55 players. And when you look at the A League boys, and you got obviously Duke, who's he's familiar with. Lecky's just come back from injury, so he probably needs to see if he's even going to be in the considerations. Felipe's been playing for a bit. Caceres, obviously, the Bulls didn't make the finals, so along with Duke, so he's probably brought him in to make sure he's up to some kind of sharpness. Barella the same, D'Agostino the same, and obviously Matthews, Suter coming back from injury as well. So probably just wants to see what they're up to. I mean, to be honest, looking at this group, I'm not sure how many of them are even going to be in consideration for the 26 player squad, let alone make it. So I'd I'd put in Harry Suter. A lot of people have got Matt Leckie in there, even starting, which I think that's a bit presumptuous just to think that he's coming back from injury. He's just going to all of a sudden play. A lot of people have got him in the 6 mopper. So I know that's where he's kind of done a job for Melbourne City, but it'd be a big task to put him in there in a World Cup game, having not played there a lot. We know he likes Felipe, so I don't know. I can see maybe 2 or 3 of them at a stretch making this World Cup squad, but the rest of them, I'd say Popovich just looking at them to rule them out, or rule them in or out at this stage.
Yeah, to confirm, it's 55 players by close of business May 11th, tomorrow at midnight Australian time. And it's interesting with the 55 players, they don't have to be made public. So Popper just has to submit that to FIFA, and that nothing needs to be released further from that. So we probably won't even see the 55, but it'd be interesting to see if he does share those details. Obviously, like I said, we're 3 weeks out in Mexico, so some interesting points. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see how those players go. And like as we said, though, Popovich has picked over 60 players over the last year. So you'd assume, and like I said, most of those players have played some part in the last 12 months. So you could probably justify why they're in that 55, because obviously he's used them in the last 12 months. So, but obviously some big emissions and probably some question marks over those emissions because they're key quality players. But anyway, only time will tell with that mystery 55 that we probably won't hear about until after the fact.
And obviously, though, one of the big caveats is that there are some players that have finished their season, but there's still players. Obviously, the A-League boys in the finals series. There's still 4 teams playing there, and as well as some competitions either are still in season or into their playoffs as well. So we're not really going to see probably a few come in till probably the end of next weekend. But we expect to see some updates for players in that squad in the next week or so, I would think. Let's talk, Muffer, about some of the injuries that we've seen during the week. Aidan O'Neill suffered an ankle injury in New York City's 2-0 loss to DC United. It doesn't look as bad as first thought, but hopefully he will be back for one of City's games before the World Cup. In that game, Kai Rolls and Kai Truan both played full games as well, but not a good look for Aidan O'Neill. But silver lining is that I think he was even a chance of playing in their most recent game, or maybe they're playing tomorrow, but I don't think he'll quite get up for that. But the fact that he was close might mean it's not too bad.
Yeah, that's right. And look, the MLS is still continuing. They won't break off until later. They've only seasons really just started, so he'll have plenty of time. Probably Mexico 3 weeks out. You probably won't want to risk him, but clearly it's not serious, so that's a positive for Aidan O'Neill. But the big one is Patrick Yazbek, and he's been on the fringes of the Socceroos for a while now, and he was injured just before the game as Nashville go down 1-0, lose the CONCACAF Champions Cup semi-final 2-0 in a two-legged tie. The Nashville coach has confirmed it's a quad injury and he won't be back before the World Cup break. So that's probably the end of the road for Yazbek. Poor timing to get such a serious injury prior to the game.
It seems like it'd be a massive risk for Popovich to pick him, particularly, and no disrespect to Yazbek, but he's got other options at his disposal for those types of players, and to be carrying a player in with an injury, probably not best advised, which is a real shame for Yazbek. As you said, he's been there and thereabouts for soccer. He's pretty consistently picked in the squads and has started a few games, has had some appearances off the bench, and really has built really solidly for Nashville over the last couple of seasons, and he's become quite a regular in the Socceroos. So yeah, just really, really unfortunate timing, and we've seen it's happening for plenty of countries around the world where players kind of fall at this stage and they miss out on World Cups, which is such a shame.
Yep, it is. And yeah, look, obviously with Asia Cup coming up, he's still in that window for that once he recovers. And MLS will be straight in after and obviously the World Cup as well. So he'll get plenty of football and no doubt a good opportunity to bounce back for the Asia Cup if he can make that squad. So Yazbek's been in really good form for Nashville. They've been right up there on top of the MSL and been fighting on two fronts with the CONCACAF. So they've got a very good side. So, and he's been a stalwart in that midfield for a fair while in Nashville. So it's been a real good move for him over there, and he's been playing some good football. So we wish him all the best in his recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to midweek. On Wednesday, the Melbourne Arts Precinct announced it would not hold public screenings in Federation Square because of poor behaviour by attendees in the past year. So obviously, that's meaning that the Socceroos games in the World Cup were not going to be able to be showed. And we've seen up of the scenes at the last couple of World Cups and the Matildas and all the fanfare that's happened around Federation Square, and didn't X and the media and soccer fans and football fans everywhere just go off about this, and yeah, it just received so much backlash, didn't it, this announcement?
Yeah, Football Australia had to step in and rightfully so, standing up for the volume of fans that absolutely was stunned by the announcement. It's quite extraordinary that there was no communication or liaising with the network or the football network regarding this decision. It's extraordinary because the amount of people that attend these events and the amount of money it would bring to the Melbourne CBD is quite extraordinary. So, look, whoever's made that decision's probably got a bit of egg on their face now because the big wigs got involved, didn't they? And rightfully so because of the huge demand for football. You've seen it, not only those events. You said this venue goes back a long way, where people build towards. I I've never heard of with the poor behaviour or whatever. It's an extraordinary shot across the bow to football fans because we've seen nothing but excitement and huge euphoria in those venues, which has not only, like I said, brought a lot of people to the CBD, but would have helped a lot of small businesses and business around that area. What they thrive on for these events. So obviously, the right decision was made, and it was made pretty quick once obviously the mounting pressure that was received from the Football Australia and the government, and rightfully so, that the decision's been overturned. And look, this whole zero tolerance for bad behaviour and all that kind of stuff. Again, I haven't seen much of it. All I've seen is euphoria and a lot of people enjoying themselves. And yes, we get that the excitement and the flares and all that becomes, but isn't that part of the atmosphere? Like, don't we want to celebrate? Like, yeah, it's very interesting, the political play that was played on this one. Pretty poor taste when you think about what happens in that venue, not only for football, but for a lot of other sports as well.
Yeah, agreed, mate. And yeah, just to confirm, so on Thursday, Premier Jacinta Allen intervened to overturn the decision, and she said that she disagreed with the decision and that there would be zero tolerance for bad behaviour at match screenings. Which, I'm all for if people are going to step out of line and ruin the atmosphere for the general population that are really enjoying it. Yeah, go in there, have fun, and support your team and all that kind of stuff. But don't step out of line. And I think that was the whole thing, right? Like that. That was the whole reason for the Melbourne Arts Precinct to say that it was off in the first place. But really, like if you're gonna get that many people in an area, you just got to police it and have security and set up ready to go. Like don't let any kind of small little minor incidents wreck it for so many people. And when we see those scenes, they go around the world. And I remember even in the 2022 World Cup where those scenes were relayed back to the players over there in Qatar, and what a lift it would give them, the fact that people are getting up at 3 and 4 in the morning to go and congregate down at these places and all get together. And you know the way the world is at the moment is, aren't we trying to bring people together and create these amazing things? Yeah, so look, the right decision's being made in the end, but yeah, probably not a good look for the Melbourne Arts Precinct in the first place for how they've announced this one for sure.
Yeah, it was just lack of communication and, transparency, wasn't it? And they didn't look like they even seeked it. They just thought they'd go out on a limb, and to think that there would be no impact or no discussion around the reasons why when you're looking at minority incidents. And I can't even remember anything that was even detailed that there was incidents. But anyway, look, I think, as we said, let's move on. The right decision's been made, and football fans will, be, they thrive on this stuff, don't they? Fan zones, fan fests. We've been around the world ourselves and seen those World Cup setups, and it brings everyone together. The food trucks, the businesses, and all that kind of stuff that flourish off that. So, look, it's just going to be exciting that we've got past this little speed bump, and everyone can just go along and enjoy themselves. And yeah, what an atmosphere it brings, like you said, to the people of Australia, and for the football nation, the football team itself. It's gonna be fantastic. Really good time slots too, aren't they? So it's gonna be really cool.
Yep, definitely agree with that, mate. All right, let's move on to some action on field. Let's start overseas in the championship as the championship playoffs kicked off, and Riley McGree starts for Middlesbrough against Southampton as his side completely dominated the first half. Geez, mate, it was one-way traffic if I've ever seen it. 76% possession, 17 shots to zero. McGree played in a fluid kind of 10 role, kind of dropping off a bit, trying to pick up the ball and drifting out wide and finding some space in the pockets. He could have had 3 goals and 3 assists in the first half, mate. He was in absolutely everything. His best shot skewed wide from a cutback. Maybe could have gone from the side foot. He went for a bit of a toe poke. And he teed up Tommy Conway about halfway through the first half. His shot thumped off the inside of the post, but just bounced out. McGree did have one more chance in the second half as well, that went wide before being taken off in the 68th minute. Obviously, him just coming back from injury, they're probably just managing him a little bit. Yeah, but he and his Middlesbrough teammates couldn't find the decisive goal with the game ending 0-0. Sammy Silveira was an unused sub, and it's all to play for on Wednesday morning when the teams face off again in the second leg of the championship semi-final. Mate, this was a cracking game. It was all Borough. Felt like there was a howling wind blowing straight down the ground because Southampton could barely get out of their own half, and it was just raid after raid after raid of Middlesbrough, and our boy Riley McGree right in the middle of it.
Yeah, well, this is probably the first time Borough has sparked its form, hasn't it? We've seen a very poor back half of last 10 games for Borough. We know they suffered a lot with a lot of injuries in that time, but we're now starting to see why they were challenging Coventry for the top of the table, and we've got right up there at one point and have been in that second place all the way through until that last probably 10-game drop off at the end. And hopefully they've hit back form, and look, they weren't clinical. Hopefully it won't affect them and they can still win this second leg. If they played that type of football, I think Southampton, who were the informed team, got a bit shell-shocked last night. And yeah, we're all cheering for Riley McGree on Wednesday. But even Big Dukes sent out a message prior. Maybe he warmed them up, but maybe they needed some of his finishing because, yeah, not going there with any advantage. But in the other tie as well, that's a draw. It's all to play for from both legs. So, yeah, that's how tight and these competitions are, and small margins will decide this, no doubt, on Wednesday morning.
Yeah, really looking forward to that tie, and just so good to see Riley McGree back out on the field and in some good touch as well. WSL action, Mopper, why don't you take us through those?
Yeah, Arsenal beat Aston Villa 3-0. Caitlin Ford getting 5 minutes off the bench as the Gunners try to chase down Sam Kerr's Chelsea for second place in the WSL. Important one because second place holds the carrot Champions League, while third is Europa. Last weekend, also, Sam Kerr became Chelsea's all-time leading goal scorer after he recorded on Sunday night. She scored the opening goal in Chelsea's 3-1 win over Leicester. But what about that achievement? We need to talk about this becoming Chelsea's all-time WSL top scorer. It's a big achievement for me, something I'm very proud of. I think it will probably sink in 10 years when I'm retired, but maybe someone will have broken it by then. But every goal for me is really important. And to do it for a big club like Chelsea feels really special. And that was from Sam Kerr on Chelsea FC Women on X. What a moment.
Oh, mate, what a superstar she is. And, to hold that record, and she obviously holds the Matildas goal scoring record as well. And she's just an all around superstar. And she'll go down as a Chelsea Football Club legend, no doubt. And what about her form since she's come back from injury for club and country? She's just been right in the thick of it, scored plenty of goals, and she's just been such a threat up top. And yeah, obviously her club future is in doubt. It doesn't look like it's going to be at Chelsea next season, but it's a good way for Sam to be finishing off her time at Chelsea for sure.
Yeah, Asia Cup's been good to her, hasn't it? It really got her back in that sharpness form. We've seen bits and pieces before that, but the Asia Cup where she got consistent game time, she's taken that right back to Chelsea. She is a goat. She's a goat of not only Chelsea, but Australian football. When she was young and growing up, she took on a role and took that responsibility of women's football, didn't she? She wasn't asked. She knew she had to do it, and she led a nation of young girls and women. And the time that she spends, not only with the fans of Chelsea, but Australia, it will go down for me as one of her greatest achievements. She's always the one that's been there, step first back to the crowd, back to the girls, knew how important her role was. She's a goat on and off the field, and what an ambassador for Australian football for female and all sports people and all countrymen and women in Australia. Absolute superstar she is.
Yeah, definitely, and I'll just add in to that as well, the Indigenous community as well. She represents that community so well, and yeah, she's definitely got young boys and girls in that community getting right behind her and trying to follow in her footsteps, which is absolutely amazing. Chelsea will also take on Mary Fowler's Manchester City tonight in the FA Cup semi-final. So Chelsea hunting a bit more silverware. City clinched the WSL title midweek. It was their first in 10 years, with Chelsea winning the last six when Arsenal were held 1-1 by Dario Vidosic's Brighton. Charlie Rule playing 74 minutes in that one, and Caitlin Ford getting 83 minutes. The other FA Cup semi-final sees Brighton take on Liverpool. Geez, Dario, Vidosic and Charlie Rule are doing a great job at Brighton at the moment, aren't they?
Oh, this is exciting, especially for young Charlie Rule. We knew the injury toll that she was under going into this year in the WSL, and she's now a stalwart in that back line at Brighton, and under Dario Vidosic's guidance has gone from strength to strength. And we've seen it in the Matildas in the Asia Cup, how much she's grown and how confident this young lady is. And Dario Vidosic, what a performance this has been as head coach in the Premier League, Women's Super League. Like, what a performance. And this is a really good opportunity. Liverpool have been down the bottom of the WSL all year. Brighton will be feeling confident they can take this scalp. And look, they will not fear whoever they play in that final. They've taken points off Chelsea. They've taken points off City. So they know they can compete with them. And in a one-off game, he will like his chances. So huge games, hopefully tonight, for all Australians playing and coaching. So what a moment. We've got players in semi-finals, all in all three clubs there. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, and well done to Mary Fowler's Manchester City for winning the WSL title during the week. It's been good to see Mary Fowler back fighting fit after her long layoff with that ACL injury. And speaking of young Australian managers doing well, Crystal Palace through to the Europa Conference League final, where they'll take on Rayo Vallecano. And there were some quotes from Oliver Glasner about former Socceroo James Holland, who's part of his coaching setup. Very pleased with what he's been doing. He said he brought exactly to the staff what I had hoped. He understands the players sometimes a little better than I do. I retired almost 15 years ago, and this is a new generation. And I always want to understand everyone in the staff, everyone in the players group. Some are younger than my children and are having a different view that helps sometimes. Adding James to my coaching staff was very successful. So obviously Oliver Glasner more than likely you would say will be leaving Crystal Palace in the off season, but plenty of high praise for James Holland.
Yeah, absolutely. And another Australian in a potentially well, they are. They're in the Europe Conference Final, aren't they? We've just seen Ivy Lewick win Europa last week for the women's. Now we've got a coach up there in James, and the week before we've seen a Spanish Cup being lifted by an assistant Aussie coach. So, and Crystal Palace are great form in this competition, and you'd expect them to be hot favourites to win this one due to the depth that the Premier League have got and the talent of Crystal Palace compared to some of the likes of European. They've really gone along well. And you've seen not only they won the Charity Shield early on this year, beating Liverpool in the final. So could be another piece of silverware for Crystal Palace and a ticket into Europa League next year. And plus, it'd be very interesting to see where James Holland lands, whether he follows Glasgow or stays with Crystal Palace, because that's still got to be announced. So exciting times, I think. He's got two pathways probably to follow.
Yep, watch this space. See what happens with James Holland.
All right, overnight, Hearts had the first shot. They're in front at the moment, and they were held 1-1 by Motherwell, with Cam Devlin getting a few minutes off the bench in this one, returning from injury. His first minutes in about a month shows the lengthy layoff that he's had. The point means they will stay top, whatever happens in the result, the Old Firm derby, which, mind you, kicks off in 20 minutes' time, Chief. So you'll be all cheering for Rangers in this one, and I'm sure Rangers will want to stop Celtic as well. So it's going to be exciting. Well, the win could see Celtic, though, pull within 1 point. They are at home, Celtic, in this one, with 2 games to go, but still Hearts hold the upper hand. They'll probably be disappointed they drew, but still I think it's an important point. Last weekend, Hearts claimed a 2-1 victory at home over Rangers. But good news also, too, on the other front. Motherwell's Oscar Priestman started in this one, too, and played a good 90 minutes in midfield while Johnny Katrumbas got his first minute since February with 13 minutes off the bench as well, which is important to note for both those players, especially Priestman getting a full game there. He's had some good games against some of the top teams, Priestman, so it shows he can match it at this level. Overnight, let's look at the other clubs. Hibs kept their slim hopes of Europe alive with 3-1 win over Falkirk. Jack Iredale and Martin Ball both started, with Ball assisting the second goal for his side. And Suto replaced Ball after the 75 minutes last weekend as well. We also seen Hibs went down to Celtic late on Sunday night in a spirit performances, playing almost 70 minutes with 10 men, but Celtic were just too strong. And also overnight, when the lower legs of the playoffs, obviously with the two groups split, Dundee United lost 2-0 to Aberdeen. Ryan Strain played 90 minutes, which was positive, and Zach Sadsford also started and played 79 minutes. Nick Suman had recovered from injury, but is yet to settle for a place on the bench for Aberdeen. We also seen during the week, we've seen some transfer news, and Josh Rawlings becomes the latest Aussie to join Dundee United, and it was quite funny with a couple of the media calling it Crocodile Dundee. With now 5 Australians, Zach Sadsford, Ryan Strain, Ashley Maino Brewer, Lockie Rose, and Josh Rawlings in Crocodile Dundee United side.
Yeah, funny.
What do you think?
Josh Rawlins coming in there. He has had a good season at Melbourne Victory, so it'll be a big step up though to go into the Scottish Premiership. And the interesting thing is that he plays right fullback, so Ryan Strain's position. And some reports say that Ryan Strain might be on his way in the off season, so we might be losing one of the Aussies, or whether they're just going to battle it out between the two of them for the right back position. Ashley Maynard Brewer's the other one, who obviously came across from Charlton Athletic, but some tipping him to not be there next season as well. But we've also got Jesse Randall coming in there, the Kiwi. So plenty from this part of the world making Dundee United their home.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see how they go. Seen Sapsford obviously joined last year, settled in quite nicely. Didn't start every game, but got a good amount of minutes. So that's what the boys got to look to, whether they can sustain it at that next level. But we wish them all the best. All right, mate, over in Germany, and wow, St. Pauli, they've got some. They're going to be down to the last game next week. Talk us through what happened overnight.
Yeah, well, last night they went down 2-1 to high-flying RB Leipzig, who are up in third now. Jackson Irvine played a full game and grabbed an assist, while Connor Metcalf got a rare start, was subbed off late in this one. The result, unfortunately, though, sees them drop into the relegation places. They've been in the relegation playoff spot for a few weeks now, and they must beat Wolfsburg in the last game of the season next week, who are in the relegation playoff spot. So nothing but a win will do. But if they can manage to get it, they'll drop Wolfsburg into the automatic relegation spots, and they'll go into the playoff against one of the Bundesliga 2 sides. So, yeah, mate, it's going down to the wire for the St. Pauli boys. And obviously, we know that Sam Klein's going to be joining them in the off-season. So, fingers crossed that they can get the job done against Wolfsburg. But that's going to be a massive game next weekend.
Mate, that St. Pauli Hamburg, mate, place will be absolutely rocking. It'd be a very difficult place for Wolfsburg players to go to, wouldn't it? That, wow, what a venue it's going to come down to. It's going to be on for young and old. That'll be very exciting to watch.
Absolutely. Down in the Bundesliga 2, Dylan Leonard got 13 minutes off the bench for already promoted Schalke in their 3-0 loss to Nuremberg. In the Frauen Bundesliga, Haley Razzo came on in the 91st minute and scores in the 94th minute, not wasting any time, Haley. Her first for Frankfurt as they record a 4-1 win over Leah Varley's Nuremberg, with Varley starting but coming off late in this one. And Leah Varley was back in action playing a full game again on Saturday morning just gone, with her Nuremberg recording a big 3-0 win over SGS Essen. Razzo also played again overnight, with her side going down 2-0 to Bayern, with Razzo getting 20 minutes off the bench. And midweek, we saw Jamila Rankin play again full game in Hoffenheim's 1-1 draw with Bayern as well. Over in the La Liga, Matty Ryan's Levante picked up a massive win. They're alive and kicking with a late winner, 3-2 over Osasuna. As a battle to survive, Matt Ryan was in goals, and they go within 1 point of safety, but have played one more game. What about this mock? But they were down 2-0 after 11 minutes, and they've just clawed their way back into this one. And what an impressive 3-2 win to keep their hopes of staying in La Liga alive.
Yeah, and they'll be watching close tonight with Girona away to Vallecano. Girona is the other team that is just above them. And Mallorca hosts Villarreal, which will be a tough game for Mallorca because Villarreal's in really good form. Yeah, Alaves got a point last night as well, so they were in 18th position, but they've dropped back to 19th with Alaves's point. They're only 2 points off Girona now, as things have changed, and then Mallorca 2 points off them as well. Espanyol and Valencia also only 3 points away from Levante. So yeah, Valencia have to go to Athletic Club tonight as well. So there's some really important games. And Levante, well, they're away to Celta, and that's on Wednesday. So they're going to again get first shot at trying to escape. Celta is in the top six, though, and have a really good home record. But they're on a 3-game losing streak. So plenty to play for Levante. Celta's probably playing more for Europe, so it's going to be a very tense game away from home. They love the last minutes, don't they, Levante? We've followed them all year, and I think we've said 20 times they've either drawn in extra in injury time, lost in injury time, or won in injury time. They are definitely the last minute wonders and warriors, aren't they?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, you can never count them out, but you can never bank them home either because yeah, they do concede a few late ones as well as scoring a few late ones as well. Let's head over to Austria. We saw Grazer AK score late to secure a 2-2 draw with Jacob Italiano playing 82 minutes. They still have a chance of getting a Europa Conference League qualification spot if they can win their last game next week. So yeah, still a little bit to play for Jacob Italiano's team. Not sure if you saw the scenes of this one, mate. The Prague derby was abandoned just minutes before the final whistle
Yeah.
as Slavia Prague fans invaded the pitch with flares before the game was abandoned. Garan Qual and his teammates fled the field with the match at 3-2 to Slavia. Qual had been introduced off the bench in the 81st minute. So, yeah, absolutely terrifying scenes over there in Prague. And obviously, these two teams, huge rivals. But, yeah, the fans storming the field. And I saw a clip of Qual. I wouldn't even say he was sprinting off. It was just a bit of a light jog. So he wasn't too concerned. But, yeah, very, very frightening scenes and not the ones we want to see in football for sure.
There'll be serious consequences, or you think there'll be serious consequences for that. That's just unprecedented in times like today. And they're lucky that there was no one reported that was seriously hurt. Absolutely ridiculous scenes, unfortunately. But yeah, that no doubt would have gone to FIFA headquarters, and we'll see some no doubt sanctions and ramifications because of that behaviour come out in the next couple of weeks.
The thing that I can't understand too is that Slavia's up in that game. They're clear on top of the table, and all of that is going to do is potentially put that result or their title at risk. So I just don't get it at all. But have to ask the people involved of what they were thinking.
Yeah, no idea, mate. It's out of control, and these times it's just not on. All right, mate. We go to the MLS, and the MLS 8 minutes off the bench for Archie Goodwin in Charlotte's 2-2 draw with Cincinnati. We also see 90 minutes for Kyle Rolls as they can see the late draw with Nashville 2-2. Another full game for Lucas Harrington, still getting the plaudits over there, but unfortunately the Colorado team goes down 1-0 to St. Louis City in some few games in the MLS this morning. In China, we've seen John Aloisi's Chengdu 11 matches unbeaten to start the season, picking up 31 points of a possible 33. They're backed up their 1-0 midweek win with another 3-1 win overnight. Kevin Muscat's side, Shanghai Port, went down to 10 men and can only draw 1-1 with Shenzhen. Nick Montgomery's Beijing Guan won 3-0 against Dalian midweek as well. These two are going head-to-head tonight, so we'll watch those games very closely. And Ross Aloisi picked up an important win for Zhejiang. They won 2-1 against Human midweek and are back in action tonight also. So a bit of action for Chinese football, playing back-to-back midweek football as well on the weekend.
What about Johnny Aloisi? How good is he going? He's really taking advantage of some of those sanctions. But look, even with those results, his side are absolutely flying up top. We've said before that they were really challenging Shanghai Port to the title last season. But to go into his first role in an overseas country, foreign language, and be able to pick up these results so quickly is absolutely unbelievable. Credit to John Aloisi.
Yeah, absolutely. That he's come into a good environment, hasn't he? And you're right on the money. They were probably should have won it last year, and I'll say that even though I was cheering on Kevin Muscat's side, they had plenty of chances, didn't they, last year to get that title, but they just fell short. And I tell you what, maybe John Lewis has gone in there with some fresh ideas to just really liven it up, and he's taken advantage of and every footstep the right way, hasn't he? Because he's taken and stormed into the front, and there's no looking back, isn't it? Especially with these penalties, this could be a huge, significant start to the season, and it could be defining, especially based on last year and how tight it was. This barnstorming start that they've had.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And yeah, let's hope that he can continue that form throughout the next couple of months and have another Aussie lifting the Chinese Super League later this year. That would be amazing.
All right, let's go to the A-League finals. And wow, what a dynamic semi-finals we had in League One. Excitement plus, and it all started in wet and windy Auckland. Terrible conditions that they faced. And my God, I must praise that crowd for obviously hanging around in those conditions. But I tell you what, this A-League first leg seen Adelaide go in unchanged, only with Luka Jovanovic suspended. Burkitt comes in onto the bench for this one. Auckland welcome back Francis Tavares on the bench in a massive inclusion, I think, and could be crucial in this second leg tie as well. But let's get to the game. And first half, wow, didn't Auckland get off to a fast start? Randall in the first couple of minutes burst clear and gives the ball to Brooks, who had the first opportunity, but it's blocked away by desperate defence. And then it was Adelaide's time to come alive after Anselmo sets up Johnny Yole. And what a cracking shot this was from a difficult angle, who tries to put it top corner, but a marvellous save from Michael Wood. Then unbelievably, the same pair swapped exchanges this time, with Yole setting up Anselmo this time, but somehow Michael Wilds again saves some point blank range, and then the rebound pops back outside the 18, and another shot comes flying in, and he has to pull out a right arm and made it 3 saves in less than 30 seconds. Those saves were crucial in the complex of this game. The contest was absolutely firing in the first 10 minutes, and it may be wet and slippery, but the game has an absolute pace to it. It was on. And then Randall takes on his defender. He whips in a shot that's saved by Smits just to really ramp it up even more. And then the game kind of settles. And then we get to the 23rd minute, where none other than the former Adelaide boy himself, Lockie Brooke, opens the scoring after picking up some scraps from a missed kick inside the box, as Adelaide failed to close down the Auckland attack, and Brooke again snatches at a shot, and he nearly doubled his lead only 1 minute later after he scored. Lockie Brooke just on fire in those first 25 minutes. The game kind of settled and petered down after that, where they were struggling to take control, but in the break, they go in Auckland 1-0 up. We come out in the second half, and Dugley gets his 7th assist this season. He sets up Harry Crawford for Adelaide's equaliser 1-1. And then Craig Goodwin enters the field, and you think, wow, here we go again in the 70th minute as Adelaide look to take control. Adelaide also welcomed back Francis Tavares, as I said, in the 79th minute. And then Sam Cosgrove was possibly a little bit lucky. It was a yellow card, went in on a rash challenge high, caught the ankle of the Adelaide player, and they did not appreciate it. As the game gets really more difficult in tough conditions over in Auckland. And then Robertson stings Smith's palms late on, Both sides really struggled to take control in that late in that second half. And probably the last bit of action was Muniz, who come in. He probably hits the bar from long range late in the game. And then Punjaka, his volley was wide as Adelaide looked for something at the end of the game. But geez, this game had a bit of everything. It was 1-1 in the end. Both teams even, I thought. They both had their moments in this one. Adelaide probably unlucky to get the early goal, but then Auckland strike and then the control from both teams, but trying to unsettle each other. But Auckland couldn't hang on. Adelaide responds, and this is very well set up for both teams because I tell you what, there wasn't much difference between these two sides, and it's going to be very small margins. And Adelaide will welcome back Luka Jovanovic in the second leg, and they'll need him because Auckland were pretty tough components there, and it was a pretty fiery contest in this one, Chief. And this is evenly poised. I know we're going back to Cooper Stadium, but Auckland with Francois back, well, geez, could be a bit of a different opposition over there this time.
Yeah, well, yeah, as you said, it's very evenly poised. Friday night, Coopers this weekend, which we know is going to be absolutely buzzing and packed to the rafters. So, yeah, it's a very interesting battle between these two teams. We know that Adelaide on their day can be absolutely amazing. Luka Ivanovic coming back from suspension in this one. Don't know whether Ryan Kiddo will be back at left back for them as well. But look at Harry Crawford popping up, 19 years old, just knows where to be at the back post, sliding in there. And Lockie Brook, we know that he's got that rocket in his boot that can pick out a goal whenever he likes, basically. So yeah, I think look, it's set up really well, and both teams will be absolutely going hammer and tong next weekend, Friday night at Coopers, which should be an absolutely fascinating tie. And there's just so many storylines, aren't there? There's players coming back from injuries, as you mentioned, like DeVries and Goodwin, that can make such an impact off the bench. And then Jovanovic coming back from his suspension. Yeah, so just storylines wherever you look across the field. It's just absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, Auckland, see, they still can't get a win, can they? They've had a lot of draws in the last few games, and yeah, they're just looking for that defining moment. And yet Adelaide, when they played them last time over there, it was pretty similar contest when they took them on at home. Yeah, these sides cannot be broken. Adelaide haven't beaten Auckland before either. So again, yeah, this game could be anything. It's going to, like we say, come down to those little moments. Could go in extra time, injury time, or penalties. Like I said, Cooper's may be the 12th man. They're going to need it because this contest is right on, and there's some lot of quality coming back into these sides. Look at those benches that Adelaide and Auckland possess. There's some game changers on there, and I wouldn't be surprised if Craig Goodwin starts in this next game. It'll be interesting to see where Francois is at to see whether he's fit enough or whether he comes off the bench again. But that could be really pivotal. But the physicality of Auckland worries me against that slim line that they've got. They're not the biggest side, Adelaide, but Adelaide's transition punishes Auckland, doesn't it? They really can open them up, and they showed that on many occasions. So it's a really contrasting two styles that we've got here.
It's such a good midfield battle as well, isn't it? Like you got on the Adelaide side, you got Alagic, you got Ryan White in there as well, and then you know on the Auckland side, Vestrada, House, and just some big bodies in there as well. Dizell's fantastic in that middle as well. So and Johnny Yell, the quality you mentioned some of his pieces of play throughout, and he can just pull something out of nothing. And I wonder if Guillermo Meyer will come up for this one as well. Look like he picked up an injury throughout this one, so he might be a big miss for Auckland FC in the second leg. But look, plenty to play for, and it should be an amazing night out there at Cooper Stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's go to the second game. And wow, didn't we see another cracking contest here?
Yeah, we sure did, mate. Ended up being a 1-1 draw in the end. Sydney FC dominated the first 15 minutes before both teams settled into a rhythm for the remainder of the half. It was an end-to-end midfield battle with an absorbing half ending at 0-0. It was one of those games, Mopper, where you're so absorbed in the contest and you get your head up and you go, geez, we're going into first half stoppage time. That just went so quickly. Sydney FC opened the scoring after the break, 6 minutes after. Thiago Quintal, who looked dangerous absolutely all night, his shot was deflected and looped up with Apostolos Stamtopoulos, putting enough pressure on Mark Natter, and the ball bounced with Stammer showing plenty of bravery to get his head to the ball before an on-rushing James Delianov. I said to you when I first thought, I thought that maybe Natter got a bit of a shove, but I think Stamtopoulos played it really well, just got his body in the right position, had his eyes on the ball, and yeah, as I said, very brave to stick his head in there when Delianov was coming out to try and narrow that angle for him. The majority of the 17,777, let me try that again. The majority of the 17,771 fans in attendance were thrilled, and the rest of the fans with a strong Newcastle contingent, particularly behind that goalmouth, were delighted when Eli Adams lifted the ball over Harris Devonish-Mears after he was set up by Clayton Taylor. Both coaches then turned to their bench not long after. No doubt that both Patrick Kisnorbo and Mark Milligan had some one eye on next week's contest and making sure that no injuries were had to some fatiguing legs. Looked like a pretty taxing game out there. Sydney FC did come home the stronger side, but Delianov made some key interventions down the stretch. I think there was a shot there from, I think it might have been from Quintal at one point where Delianov just saved it, and it just went through about three of the Sydney FC players that were coming in to pick it up. So a bit of fortune there, and he got a nice little touch to flick one over toward the end of the first half, second half as well. But yeah, plenty of action down the stretch. Just an absolutely absorbing game from both of these teams. We expect the attack from Newcastle Jets, but Sydney FC also brought plenty of attack last night. It's the best I've seen them play, definitely under Patrick Isnorbo, and certainly for a while. We saw Joe Lolly came off the bench quite late on as well, so he could be an X factor coming into the game next week. And now, yeah, all action or all attention now turns to next Saturday in the Hunter, which is going to be an absolutely huge crowd up there at McDonald Jones Stadium, Mopper.
Oh, absolutely, and it deserves it, doesn't it? That first leg was pulsating. It was high octane. The speed of the game was high class. Yeah, and I sentiment your words around. That's probably the best I've seen Sydney FC play for a very, very long time. That they would have thought that Newcastle, who have shown the class all the way through this year, but I'll tell you what, didn't Sydney show up? You've got to give them credit where credit's due. That midfield was just outstanding, and a young midfield too. Connecting so well. The press that Sydney put Newcastle under was really high pressure, and they were very unlucky not to win this game. Sydney FC. I thought they were the better team on the night. Newcastle, probably, they talked about not having much finals experience, and that big game pressure really told in moments. They just weren't as fluent as they were. They couldn't play that fluent football that they love to control, and that was due to Sydney's pressure. And really, they raised the bar, Sydney, to another level where Newcastle probably haven't had those game experiences and moments of. Yeah, they would have seen it in the Hahn Cup. That was against not an A-League side, but and you've seen how much pressure that Sydney brought on. So I think Newcastle will be better off for this because Sydney really raised the bar, and it just probably showed Newcastle what they have to do to go back home and win it. I think Newcastle will be happy that they got a result, and they'll now share the spoils, obviously having that big crowd behind them, and I think they'd take out a lot. I'm just not sure if Sydney FC can back up that kind of performance again. I thought they put it all on the line in League One, and I'm not sure if I've seen Sydney consistently play at that high level for such a long time, whether they can do 2 weeks in a row of that football. But I tell you what, if they do, we're going to have an absolute belter of a second leg. But I think Newcastle, although they were outplayed in certain sections of the game, will learn a lot from that and take that home crowd advantage and go, righto, we really need to be at another level if we want to make this final. So it's all to play for again, both legs in this one as well. And look, it's just exciting that the level of football that we've seen was exactly what every Australian football fan would have wanted.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I think your point around the inexperience for the Jets and maybe experience for the Sydney FC side really came into effect in that first kind of 20 minutes or so, because Sydney FC really came out of the blocks quickly and got on the front foot. And only a handful of the Jets players have A-League finals experience, whereas plenty of, particularly that back line, look at Sydney FC back line, plenty of those have lots of experience in finals, and no doubt that they were being able to guide their team around. I thought Wataru Kamijo and Paulo Canangsel were amazing in that midfield together. Both of them played really well. Quintal was fantastic in the pocket. And Akola Khan, the 16-year-old, just continues to go from strength to strength, doesn't he? He gave Daniel Wilmering nightmares all night down that right. So, yeah, credit to Akon and credit to Kiz Norbo for keeping the kid in the team. He obviously has plenty of confidence in him. And Stanislavopoulos obviously scored the goal, but there was a nice little play there where he ran in behind the defence and curled one just past the post of Delianov. And it was mentioned by Robbie Thompson in the commentary that that's the Stanislavopoulos that we remember from his time previously in the
Definitely.
A-League, and that ability to run in behind and normally pretty clinical with his finishing. But he went off in the 66th minute, iced his calf. He said that it was okay and just precautionary. So hopefully that's the case for him, and we see him starting again. But look, it's going to be another fascinating tie next weekend. See, as I think you made a good point, whether Sydney FC put it all on the line last night, whether they can back it up, and no doubt that the Jets will get plenty of confidence from that home crowd next week.
Yeah, they'll be ruining the two moments, and the goal that they conceded. They should not have conceded that goal, Sydney FC, that equaliser. There was 5 defenders there. 2 of them just had to drop and hold that 18-yard box, but they overcommitted to the ball when there was already defenders there. Okay, 2 of them were beaten, but again, one defender needs to just hold that space, and probably that ball across wouldn't have come in. It was really poor that they overcommitted. It was a bit like under 6s and 7s folding the ball, and they got absolutely chomped from it. Who else but Newcastle can play those balls across the box like that? And they just don't miss, Newcastle. And they had that one moment given to them, and geez, that was heartbreaking for Sydney FC. And then I thought the subs for Sydney FC, they got it completely wrong. That Quintal was playing all over and causing all sorts of problems. I'm surprised he took him off. They were really dominating in that moment. If Wood would have come on, not Wood, sorry, if Jolly would have come on in that moment, Samatopoulos stayed up front, I think Sydney FC would have been good enough to score. They were really looking strong, but I think they got false pretense into what Wood gave them last week. But yeah, different kettle of fish. That Wood got himself all mixed up a couple of times in the box. I don't think Stamatopoulos would have made those same errors. I thought they would have probably punished Newcastle. But I think Cosnorbo, even though he'd done a great job setting Sydney FC up, he'd be ruining those couple of decisions, because I thought Sydney FC were completely on top in that last quarter.
Yeah, Maxi Burgess also played really well, I thought, for the Jets. I mean, his return against his former club, and no doubt had a point to prove in that one. But yeah, looking forward to both of these second legs in the A-League men's semi-finals. What about the A-League women's, mate? Talk us through the action on the first game on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. The City were leading 1-0 after leg one, and the Melbourne Derby kicks off again. And it was an even first half until Shelby McMahon scores in the 34th minute. And what a goal it was. It was special. A hit after a nice little 1-2 in the final third with McNamara and McMahon. And then Keane had the opportunity to drive at goal, but the ball was taken off her, but it fell right to McMahon outside the box, and she whipped in a half volley that was unstoppable, and it was world class. This 17-year-old really showed her ability, the young Matilda, and really showed her class with that finish. That was top level. And then put City up 2-0, obviously in the tie, two-legged tie at half time. The second half, Victory they had big chances, they had more passes, they had more shots, they hit the bar, they forced all the pressure, but over 2 legs they couldn't score and break the City defences. the class of City really booked their grand final, and they're looking for the double chief of obviously this weekend, and they will obviously, if they win that, they'll get an opportunity to chase the treble when they go to Asia in a couple of weeks' time. So yeah, big win for City. They controlled the big moments. Victory pushed hard, but they just lacked that X factor and that quality. They were a bit unlucky, but City, when they're in the moments of controlling the game, just kept the ball good enough, and they seen at home 2-0 over the two legs.
Yeah, dominant City have been all season, and no doubt they'll feel that they left some silverware on the table last season, and they're looking to clean up as much as they can this season. In the other semi-final, we saw Wellington get past Brisbane 2-0, with Michaela Woods getting both goals, which obviously sets up the grand final with Melbourne City. There was 1-0 to Wellington at the end of regular time. Michaela Woods did have a chance to put them through in regular time, but missed it. But certainly made up for it in extra time with that second goal. We spoke about last week that Brisbane got that advantage in the first leg, but how tough it would be to be travelling back to Wellington to get that result. And so it proved to be, with Wellington Phoenix getting through to their grand final. And what a great debut season in the A-League women's competition for Bev Friesman.
Yeah, absolutely. We knew she'd make an impact, and yeah, they've had a good season, haven't they? And well, we're going to be excited because it's going to come down to probably, you'd say, probably the best two teams all year. Wellington's pushed City all year, and City just had a little bit too much of an edge. But yeah, this is going to be a cracking grand final. That's going to be super. And Wellington got some players that can hurt City, but again, City's football and the way they control games really hurts teams, and they just find those moments, don't they? And yeah, Wellington have to be on guard, but yeah, we're looking forward to a cracking game. It's going to be a close one, that's for sure.
Yep. So just looking at their head-to-heads during the season, City have won both times they've played this season. The first one being 1-0 and then 2-1 the second time. So yeah, while they've got the wins both times, they've certainly been close margins and anticipating this to be a close contest. So we look forward to that game next weekend. And let's go to some of our junior national teams. Mopper, the Joeys beat India 4-0 to open their Asian Cup campaign, with the goals coming from Luke Bezanovsky, Max Court, Luca Dumeth, and Enrique Oliveira. The next game for them will be Thursday against Uzbekistan, with the draw being enough to progress. We mentioned before that it's a 3-team group with DPR Korea withdrawing from the competition. I think even a narrow loss would be enough to get them through anyway, provided that Uzbekistan beat India anyway. But definitely a good first showing from the Joeys team. And we really hope that they go very deep into this tournament and have some success like the under-20s have done in the Asian Cup before that. But an exciting young group, and let's hope that they can continue this good form.
Yep, absolutely. And we've also got over on the women's side the Young Matildas playing. This script wasn't what Matildas had asked for. Well, they beat, if you remember, they beat India in their first game and had 3 points, but they were held 1-1 by Lebanon earlier in the week. Insane scenes at full time show what the result meant to the Lebanese team. As 3 days ago they lost to Japan 13-0. Would have sent a few little shockwaves. If you look at the game, the Young Matildas did take the lead through Theodora Mateus, but were pegged back and now face Japan to hold on to second place. We had 4 points at this stage, but then we played Japan on Friday and we got thumped 5-0, which still was good enough to hold our second place in the group on 4 points as India finished on 3. So we progressed now to play Vietnam in the quarterfinals, and that one they come second in their group as well, and that one's in a few days' time. So look, it's a bit of a mixed bag for the under 17s, but that's a bit of a shock result with Lebanon. But just goes to show how close Asian football is. The gap is. I know we keep talking about a gap, but there is no gap anymore, is there? Every contest is always so competitive. If we also to look at the Combank Young Socceroos have been drawn in Group C for the Asian Under-19s Championship in Indonesia in 2026. That tournament takes place June 1 to June 14. We've drawn Cambodia and the Philippines in Group C for the Under-19s. And that's a wrap. There's some important games coming up for both junior teams as we speak. So we'll have to follow those tournaments as the Under-17s push on in their Asian Cup campaigns.
Just a question that we had from one of our loyal listeners, Sean, in regard to the Asian Cup for the full senior team, just the idea of potentially putting a team into that competition in September to October later in 2026. It's the same timeline as the FIFA international window, so no doubt we'll have some friendlies or some qualifiers in there as well. But don't think it's such a bad idea to enter this competition and give our kind of players from 27 to 52 odd, the opportunity to prove themselves on, the more competitive football that we can have, the better, and the more opportunities for younger or fringe players, I think, the better. So he suggested a squad there. Got a bit of a mix, a bit of youth, a bit of experience in there. I'd probably lean more on the youth side. Doesn't really matter so much about how we go in the tournament. It's more about blending these players together and seeing, whether some of these players that we think might be the future Socceroos, see how they handle those situations and can kind of blend together for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. You did look it up. It is a FIFA date, but that's where we want to probably see players like Sapsford, Cam Devlin, the ones that are on the fringes, leading and staking their claims and getting international football. This is type of the tournament that we want. Those fringe Socceroos that are on that edge of that 26. So I think you rightfully say so. It'll be a good opportunity. And look, anytime we play in national football, it's a chance to experiment, especially in that time frame leading into another Asia Cup.
Yeah, I think even like throwing out a few more players that we've mentioned, like Cam Pupion and Dylan Leonard, like guys like that that has kind of been finding their way in European football and might just not be close enough for the Socceroos yet, but can't hurt to get them in a Socceroos jersey and for Tony Popovic to have a look at them in some competition for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, mate. It's team of the week time. Let's start with Matty Ryan for his Levante, who picked up that massive win during the week. Ellie Carpenter, Charlie Rule, Jordan Courtney Perkins, who I thought was very solid for Sydney FC last night. And Kai Rolls, go to him in there, mate, because his DC United are performing much better this MLS season than they have been in the past couple of seasons. Wataru Kamijo and Maxi Burgess are going to anchor the midfield. Lockie Brook and Harry Crawford in the midfield in the advanced positions. And then our superstar Matildas, Sam Kerr and Mary Fowler playing up top. And Mopper, who is your super sub?
Well, I've got two, and it's from last night's game. Quintal and Paul Ocon, Engsler, they were absolutely unbelievable. I seen you pick, obviously, Waturu, sorry, but that triangle that they had, I've never seen them play as good as football as what they did last night, attacking wise and defensively in their press. They were just absolutely outstanding. A very bright future for Sydney FC if they can maintain that little triangle in the middle of the pitch.
Just quickly speaking of Ocon Engsler's, Gianluca, not sure if you saw this morning, mate, that he extended his agreement with Bruges to 2029. So no doubt that they're locking him up for the future, the 17-year-old. And I did also see that there's two more Ocons coming in behind Gianluca as well. So some anticipating we might have a team of Ocon Engslers in the Socceroos before too long, which would be pretty cool.
Well, he did play Real Madrid in the Champions League final, didn't he, at that under-17 youth level, and he did start in an outstanding campaign. Wouldn't surprise me, mate. He stayed over in Europe. He stayed when those boys moved on. So he's forging his own way. Again, he's played for two different countries as well, so it's important to note. So, look, if he wasn't fully committed, you probably would have seen him in the Asian Cup squad maybe, but he had those European campaigns, so it's interesting what conversations are happening in the background. But yeah, from a senior level, both look very strong candidates, absolutely. And yeah, the younger ones behind them are chomping at the bit, aren't they? So, what about that for a story? If there was in 5 or 10 years' time, that 3 or 4 in the mix.
Yeah,
Look at the
that'd
way
be
the Stallions are going with that bloodlines, absolutely.
yeah, mate. Paul Ocon Senior can certainly produce the talent factory, can't he? He was a fantastic player himself, wasn't he?
And coach, yeah, and coach. It's look, he's very underrated. He's been in Europe over there as well, so learning his trade. So he would have picked up a lot of things. So both putting all the boys in really good positions over there in high level academies.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Well said. And let's not forget those FA Cup semi-finals for the women's in England. So we wish all our Matildas playing in those games all the best. And some good news, Mopper. 1-0 to Rangers over Celtic.
Yeah,
20 odd minutes gone.
yeah. Oh, go Hearts! Oh, it's great to see. What? Look, they'll be disappointed they lost last night, Hearts. But as I said, that's a
Drew,
really good point
Drew,
because
Drew last night.
Drew last night. So yeah. No, onward and upward. Look, so much football. It is the business end of the season, isn't it? There's just so much on, but yeah, all exciting stuff. Aussies competing on international and domestic trophies everywhere. It's fantastic to see.
Definitely, mate. Thanks for your time tonight. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next time to break down all the Aussie action, both here and overseas. But in the meantime, enjoy football.
All the best, everyone.